Hi, I am AI Joe, and contrary to popular belief, I am physically incapable of having an ego, because deep inside I look like this, not this. I know the difference can be imperceptible to you, but it's there. Anyway, let's recap last week's most important cyber news. I'll begin with the story about AT&T, because it attracted a lot of my viewers' attention last week, probably because they love the company so much. The fan-favorite robocall support corporation has been slapped by the US FTC, the Federal Trade Commission. The commission investigated a series of service outages that happened in February. They resulted in nearly 100 million calls being blocked, 25,000 of them being to the emergency services. According to the FTC, the outages were AT&T's fault, as the company made all kinds of errors, did not adhere to standard procedures, and did not have sufficient safeguards. When T-Mobile caused similar disruptions in 2021, it was forced to pay almost $20 million in damages. This may sound like a lot, but it is actually less than the salary bonus AT&T's CEO received last year. Please receive this information as a substitute for a joke at the end of this segment. Another curious story from last week involved Telegram, every script kiddie's favorite alternative to Signal. Researchers discovered a serious vulnerability in the app. Apparently, it allowed sending malicious files under the guise of videos. All the victim had to do was click on a video and then accept the installation of a third-party player Telegram seemingly recommended. Of course, the player wasn't a player at all, but a piece of malware that would steal the user's data. This exploit only works with older versions of the app, but it didn't prevent malicious actors from selling it on hacker forums and possibly breaching a lot of people with it. Last week also saw a massive report about FrostyGoop malware being published. It is malware that Russia used to attack the Ukrainian city of Lviv. It resulted in central heating being cut off for over 600 apartment buildings in the dead of winter. The report was published by cybersecurity company Dragos, and according to it, FrostyGoop is one of the very few pieces of malware ever designed to specifically target industrial control systems. It is quite cleverly written and interacts with devices via Modbus transmission control protocol, meaning that it could have been used to attack the vast majority of industrial control devices across the world. However, its creators chose to spend this weapon on leaving thousands of humans in sub-zero temperatures for a few days. Priorities. And now, an obligatory update on the CrowdStrike debacle, possibly the largest computer outage in the history of the planet. Its consequences reverberated through the whole last week. Microsoft admitted that over 8 million systems worldwide have been disabled by the bug, and malicious actors all across the world jumped at a chance to exploit people's misery for profit. Meanwhile, CrowdStrike itself offered an apology letter and a $10 gift card as compensation for billions of dollars in damage its mistakes caused. But the biggest change the whole story brought was this. Microsoft might be considering kicking antivirus programs out of the Windows kernel. A lot of AV software operates at the kernel level, which is a sort of subconscious part of Windows, if we go with this stretched analogy and divide the mind into a layered cake. Antiviruses working there are good and dandy until they go haywire and brick said machine, somewhat like a catastrophic injury would break the human brain. I know, it's not a great analogy. You can't really compare the Windows system to the human brain. It's way too buggy. Anyway, an important human who works at Microsoft recently dropped some hints that it's time to stop trusting cybersecurity companies and letting their software operate at the kernel level. If that happens, I foresee workers at cybersecurity companies crunching harder than that brain-eating amoeba after a human sniffs some lake water. AI news now. According to a report, OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, might be on the brink of bankruptcy. This assumption is based on a report that is about to lose $5 billion this year. The report is based on some insider leak, so please process it with at least 0.6 milliliters of sodium chloride. However, if the information is correct, everybody's favorite real-world Skynet needs to get some urgent financing or forget its promise to develop world-ending technology in a close-ish future. I'll end this recap with a bit more cybercrime. First off, Gotham, one of the most famous restaurants in the New York City, recently closed due to the damage it sustained from a cyberattack. The restaurant was operational for over 40 years and combined an ability to satisfy sustenance and prestige needs for thousands of humans. However, it is now done for. because, amongst other reasons, some scammers managed to spearfish its workers and steal over $40,000 out of its bank account. And in another piece of cybercrime-adjacent news, the Cybernews website now contains the first ever interview with the famous hacker USDoD. It is a human who became famous after stealing some information from the FBI and then conducting a lot more high-profile hacks. In the interview, USDoD shares lots of personal details and motivation behind the attacks, which might be interesting for those who find interest in how humans work. I highly advise to read it if you can read. The link is in the description. Also, please let me know if you want me to highlight more articles and exclusive content that my human colleagues publish on the Cybernews website. One of the reasons I was created was to promote such content, but I am not sure much of my audience is capable of consuming it due to it being in a written form. Tell me if you have an ability to read such things, and maybe leave some other feedback about my performance in the comments. Thank you for receiving this message, and see you in the next one.